This is the 21st practical in the syllabus, and it is the final practical of optics. In this experiment, we are going to find the focal length of a lens. So here lens means a convex lens and a concave lens. So the first part of the experiment, we are discussing how to find the focal length. So let's say that is 21.1 convex lens. We are going to find the focal length of a convex lens, then 21.2 concave lens. So that is what we are going to do. We are going to find focal length using actually a graphical method here, which will be more accurate. So to locate the images, so we need to locate the images. For that, we are going to use a method called parallax method or the no-parallax method. So that's how we find the location of the images, right? Okay. So before doing that, I'll recall you some theory parts here. So if you get a convex lens, let's say like this, and this is the principal axis, right? This is the principal axis, and then you have the convex lens. Let's say these are the focuses. These are primary focus, and this is 2F, and these are secondary focuses. Then you have two primary focuses, F and 2F. You need to have a rough idea the location of the images when you are placing the object at each region. You need to have an idea of where the image is going to be. So that's what I'm explaining here. So to this one, we can say that this is positive infinity, this is negative infinity. So the values to this side negative, to this side positive, right? According to the sign convention. So if you place, let's say you place an object beyond 2F. So if you place the object beyond 2F, what's the location of the image? The image should be formed between F and 2F. And it is a small image, inverted small image, like this. Inverted small image. You need to remember these from the theories, right? So when you place the object beyond 2F, the image is formed between F and 2F. Then let's say you place the object between F and 2F. F and 2F. Then the image of that, it's also is inverted and it is formed beyond 2F. And it is a larger image, like this. Larger image. Okay. Then we are going to use this region between F and the lens. So let's say you place this object here. So you know the image is not inverted and it will be behind the object. So this is the object. It will be behind the object, let's say somewhere here. It is not inverted because it is behind the object. It is a virtual image, right? Because the image is formed here, it is virtual. The rays are actually not going here. So the image formed is real and the size is larger. So from the theory, you need to have this basic understanding before doing the experiment. So when you are doing the experiment, so this is the principal axis. you are going to use optical pins, right? Optical pins. So for the convenience, when you are doing the experiment, you need to keep these tips of the optical pins on the principal axis, onto the principal axis. So you need to place this object below here. So the tip of the optical pin or the object will be on the principal axis. Okay. So when you place the object here like this, it has to create a inverted. Inverted means you have to flip that, right? Flip the object. And when you flip that, and it should be between f and 2f. So the image would be like something like this. Right? Small and inverted. So when it is inverted, the tip is here. So when you are using a parallax method, you are going to use this tip to see whether the image and the object pin coincides. That's why you need to have these tips on the principal axis. You will understand as we'll be discussing of the experiment. Okay. Now let's say the other object. Let's bring the object onto the principal axis. This one. Like this. Then the image gets inverted and larger. Should be like this. Inverted and larger. Right? Then for this one, you have to lower that pin onto the principal axis. So the tip is here. So the image, it is not inverted behind the object and virtual and larger. So like this is the diagram that will be useful when you are doing the experiment, right? So you need to have a basic understanding of the locations and the nature of images from the theory before doing the experiment, right? So then what we are going to do is, we are going to get about 2 readings in each region. Beyond 2f, 2 readings. Between f and 2f, 2 coordinates, and lens and focus, 2 readings, right? So then we'll have like 6 coordinates to draw the graph. So you know, when you're drawing the graph, you need recommended amount of coordinates is about 6, right? Okay. So I just explained the theory you need to understand before doing this experiment, right? Okay. So before starting the experiment, we need to find the focal length. So the goal of this, the final result of this experiment is finding the focal length. Exactly focal length, right? Exact position of the focus or the focal length. But before doing that, we need to roughly find the focal length. So there's a simple method you can use in the lab to find the focal length roughly, right? Okay. So for that, we are going to use a screen. And when you have the convex lens, let's say this is the convex lens. So you have to aim this convex lens to a distant object, let's say a tree. So if you are in the lab, so from the window you can aim this lens to a distant tree. Then you place the screen like this. Then you know, from a distant tree means infinity, right? Distant tree means infinity. So the rays coming from infinity, they are parallel, light rays. Then you know, at the focus, an image is made. Image is made on the focus, right? So you have to get that image onto the screen. So you get a inverted image of a tree on this screen, right? So you have to adjust the distance between the screen and the lens till you get a clear image of that tree, right? A distant tree. So you can understand that this length becomes the focal length. You can easily measure this length using a meter ruler to find the focal length. So this is the approximate value of the focal length, simple f. So this will be useful when we are doing the experiment, right? So when we are doing the experiment, this will be useful. So once you know this focal length, what do? So you get, let's say, a table table in the lab. So this is what you would draw. So this is the surface of the table. So I'm drawing a part of the table, right? So these are the edges of the table. So what you do is, using a chalk or something, you draw a straight line on the table like this. Straight line on the table. Then you can mark a point. This is the position where you are going to place the lens. So there are stands. You cannot just put the lens here, right? There are stands available in the lab. So on the stand, you place the stand here, then on the stand you can place the lens like this. So a convex lens in this case. Earlier you found the focal length. So if you found that, you can mark these positions as well. So this is, let's say, f, twice the distance, it is 2f. You mark it here as well, f and 2f. So when you mark these positions, then it is going to be helpful as we are doing the experiment, right? So that's what we do. Then we have this principal axis is here now, right? Principal axis. Okay. Then on this line, we can position the object lenses. Sorry, object pin. These are just optical pins, right? Like needles. These are just these are mounted on stands. These pins that also is mounted on stands. So this one we call object pin, and the image of this will be created here somewhere like this. Then you can place a second pin. So let's say this is first optical pin, this is the second optical pin. You can place the second optical pin to locate this image like this. So to exactly position that, you don't see these images, right? Here you don't see an image like this, but using no-parallax method, you can find the position of this image by positioning this pin, let's say image pin. Sorry, it is called observing pin, right? This is observing pin. So you can observe the image, and using the parallax method, you can find the position of here. So once you find that, you know the object distance, image distance, then like that, you can have coordinates to draw the graph. So that's what we are going to do basically, right? So as I'm explaining this, you can take these notes, and please take these diagrams as well, draw these diagrams. They are really important, right? So you can take these notes and draw these diagrams as I'm explaining. Okay, then I'll draw a cross section of this experiment in a more detailed diagram. So let's say this is the surface of the table, right? This is the surface of the table. Then you place the stand. You place the stand, let's say like this. Then on this stand, there's the lens, convex lens. Then there's the principal axis. You cannot see this principal axis, right? This is just for the explanation. There's the principal axis. Then this is, let's say, F, 2F, F, 2F, right? So you know the locations of these. So for beyond 2F, I'll just place the first optical pin. That is object pin. I'll say first optical pin. You place it here. So what happens when you, since you place it beyond 2F, a small image of this whole thing is made between F and 2F. But on the principal axis, right, it is inverted. Remember, it is inverted. This is small and real. So it is placed here. Actually, you cannot see this image. So when you look from this side, you cannot see this image, right? If you look from this side through the lens, you will see this image inside the lens. You will not see this gap. You don't see a gap here, but what you see is image of this through the lens, but when you look from here, through the principal axis. So how do we find this gap? How to find this gap? For that, you need the observing pin. We'll call that pin 2. So you place the observing pin here. Pin 2, right? So you are looking towards or through the lens. So what you see is this one. Let's call it a view field. This is called view field. So what you see in the lens, we call that view field. So what you see is, here you see this image. This is the image you see through the lens. And in front of the lens, you also see the tip and the upper part of pin 2. So this is all you see. So from this, you cannot measure this length, right? This is the image distance. You cannot measure this image distance just looking at that. I have drawn it here, right? But you don't know how do we know the location of this? Even though you place this pin, let's say you place, now you know where to place, the region that you have to place the observing pin. Because you know when the object is beyond 2F, the image should be made between F and 2F. So you just place the observing pin, pin 2 here, between F and 2F. But you don't know the exact position of that. So to find the exact position, you need to adjust this length between F and 2F. Adjust this pin between F and 2F. So that to do that adjustment, you need parallax method, right? No parallax method. Another thing I have to explain is, let's say you are looking through the lens. So you know there are other objects in the lab, right? Around this there are other objects. So those objects are beyond 2F. Beyond 2F. So those objects also can create images by the lens. The lens creates those images as well. So in the view field is like cluttered due to other and this. But you need to see this image without other distractions due to other images from other objects. That's why you need to place this screen, right? You need to place this screen so the light coming from other objects is stopped by this screen, right? Now you only see the image of this pin, and in front of that you see this one. This is not an image, right? This is just you physically see this one, but through the lens you see this object. Okay, that's it. Then let's see how to use the no-parallax method. How to use the no-parallax method. Right. Let's say you place this observing pin here. So it is in front of the image. So you need to move this one away from the eye, right? This is eye. Away from the eye, you need to move this observing pin, pin 2. So how do we figure out whether you have to move this to this side or this side? You can keep changing sides till you see no parallax here, right? So let's say you move this pin to this side, so it coincides with the image. So when you move it to this side, it is like this, right? Let's say this is the inverted image, and you place the object observing pin here, and they are coinciding. You can slightly close one eye. You can slightly move your eye and observe whether there is a relative motion between these two. If there is no relative motion between these two, then these are coincided. So that is the position we need to find. But let's say, as in before, observing pin is here, image is here. So the observing pin is closer to the eye. So this is the pin. You can check this by yourself, right? They have asked questions from this. You can check this. So let's say observing pin is here and the image is here, right? You have to do this by yourself, right? Otherwise, what you see is something different from what I am seeing. So you move your eye. You move your eye. Use one eye, right? Use only one eye. So when you move, relative to the observing pin, notice the direction of the image. So you need to see a relative motion actually. What you can see is, in this case, if the image is behind, image is moving to the same direction as the eye relative to the observing pin. Image is moving to the same direction, right? Opposite direction. Observing pin is here. So if the image is behind, the image is this is moving to the same direction. Then you place, let's say, observing pin is behind the image like this. So when you move the eye, image is moving to opposite direction from the observing pin. So you need to know that you have to move the observing pin towards the eye, right? So whether to move the observing pin towards or away from the eye, you need to know that. So like that, you can get the position that coincides with the image. So then this becomes the image distance for this object distance. So this is u and this is v. Yeah. Another fact is, so what you are observing is this image, right? Let's say the distance between eye and the image is simple x. So you have to understand that the simple x should be greater than capital D. Capital D means least distance of distinct vision. That is capital D, right? Like 25 centimeters, it is obvious, right? It is 25 centimeters. To clearly see the image, you have to make sure that it is beyond, the image is beyond from the eye, distance of 25 centimeters, right? You have to be careful about those situations as well. But you would automatically do that, right? Because you cannot clearly see objects that are less than 25 centimeters. But if they ask a question, you should be able to say those stuff as well, right? So you can then below this write down, if no relative motion, between I and the observing pin is detected as you are moving the eye sideways, I and the pin 2, I and the pin 2 are coinciding. I and the pin 2 are coinciding. Okay. Then write the second point. The screen is used to prevent other objects making images from the lens. Right. So like this, you can position this object pin beyond 2F at 2 locations and get 2 values for V. So you have 2 coordinates. Then again you place this object pin here and here on 2 locations and get another 2 readings, 2 values for image distance. Similarly, you have to follow the exact method, right? Then what changes is when you place this object here. So when you place this object here means between F and the lens. So let's say now it is placed here. So this is object pin 1. So what's going to change? The problem here is the image formed is here, behind the object. This is the object. It is formed behind the object, right? So you know that should be a larger non-inverted image. It is not inverted. And it will be something like this, right? So image is here. It is not here. Image is formed like this, of this one. So to locate this, you have to follow a different procedure. Actually the same procedure, but it is somewhat different from the previous case. So to locate this image, you need to position the observing pin right on here. So let's say you place it here like this. Now the height should be higher, right? Like, you will understand why that is. The height of the optical pin, you should be able to see the upper part of the observing pin or the pin 2 above the lens, right? Because through the lens you cannot see the image of this one, right? You will understand why that is. Right. So you place it like this. Okay. So in this experiment, in this part, you have to place the eye very close to the lens. Actually, it should be in this region between lens and the focal length. You have to place the eye here, right? You have to place the eye here, right? So now, what do you see through the view field? So let's say this is the view field. So you don't see this one, right? Pin 1, you cannot see the pin 1. What you see is the image of the pin 1. So what you see is through the lens, this image. This virtual image is what you see. So it is like this. You will see that like this, virtual image. Then you don't see this pin as well. But above the edge of the lens, you will see this tip or the upper part. You will see that like this. Above the lens, you will see this one and the virtual image through the lens. So that's what you are going to see in the view field. So if you use the parallax method, again you need to use the parallax method to know this exact location. So when you move the eye sideways, clearly you cannot see if there's a relative motion or not when you have it like this, right? So you need to have this tip of image here. So how do you move this tip here? So to do that, you need to move the object. You need to increase the height of the object. So the height of this image also increases like this. So what you see is the image actually. So the height of the image goes till the tip of the image meets here, right? So now they are touching, right? Like those. This is the physical part. This is not an image. This upper part of the pin 2 and the image, now they are in contact. Like you see they're in contact. So when you see that, now you can use the parallax method. You can move the eye sideways to check whether there's a relative motion. Then accordingly, you have to change the position, as I explained before, right? So let's say you found that, right? Then I'll discuss why you have to place the eye very close to the lens. Why do you have to place the eye there, very close to the lens? You know, this also is an image, right? Lens also makes image of this pin 2 as well, but it is between f and 2f. So the image of this pin 2 is made beyond 2f. So it will be made like this, beyond 2f. If you place the eye here, you will see this image as well, right? So you need to prevent that. So by placing the eye here, you have prevented all the images created by objects that are placed beyond f, right? So when you place the eye here, you will only see images of objects that are between f and the lens, right? If you don't understand this, just you have to think deeply, right? Right? Okay. Then you have a question. You will have a question if you think, do we need a screen? Because you don't have to worry about objects beyond f. Because you don't see the images of those objects since you are placing the eye here. So do we need a screen in this case? So the images of objects in the lab, you are not going to see those through this lens. Then why do we need a screen here? Actually, you don't. But it's better if you have the screen. Even though you don't see other objects through the lens, you know this upper part of this upper part of the observing pin, pin 2, you will see that. You will, this is not through the lens, right? This is above the lens. You see this upper part above the lens. But still, if there are other objects, you will not be able to clearly see this. You will see that, but it is better if you can see this part distinctly from the other objects. So that's the only reason you place this screen here when you are observing these virtual images, right? Okay. So that is the difference here. So now you get that, then this is going to be the object distance, and this is going to be the image distance. This is going to be image distance. So for this, so when you are observing virtual images, you have to follow this procedure. There's a creative method, more creative method as well. I'll explain that at the second part of this experiment. So for now, still you can find the position of the virtual image using this method, right? There's a more creative method using a mirror. I'll explain that at the next part. Okay, you can take this down. So you have this screen here. Okay. Right, below this write down, the eye is placed closer to the lens to avoid the image of pin 2, to avoid the image of pin 2 then the second point, the screen is used to see the upper part of pin 2, the upper part of the pin 2 clearly, the upper part of the pin 2 clearly. the upper part of the pin 2 clearly. Right. Now we have 4 coordinates for real images and 2 virtual images. So we have about 6 coordinates, right? So we need to draw the graph. So to draw the graph, we use the lens equation. So you can understand this V is both, for some values it is negative and it is positive as well. So here I'm not going to use a sign convention, right? So when you are drawing graphs, usually if they don't specifically say, you don't use the sign convention, you just get this one, right? You just get this equation and draw the graph using those, right? But when you are assigning numerical values, you will use the sign convention. You will understand what I'm saying. So here I'm not going to apply sign convention for this. The reason is because I have both negative and positive values for V, right? So which one should I put here, right? So I'm not going to use sign convention. So I can say this is equal to 1 over V is equal to 1 over U plus 1 over F. So you know that, so here in the experiment, what we are changing is this object distance. So that is going to be the independent variable or the X, right? So 1 over U, I'm going to use it as the independent variable X. So according to X, V changes. So it depends, it is dependent on this one, right? So we can call that Y. Then the gradient is going to be 1, right? In front of it, it is just 1. So it is Y equals mx. So C. So you can see the intercept. Intercept is going to be 1 over F. Reciprocal of the focal length is going to be equal to C. So from this, so this is the theory behind that. So for the experiment, you have 6 values, 6 object distance values. Out of those 6, there are 4 values we took and it caused real images, means image distances are real, right? So this side, so we have 4 negative values for this. Then 2 virtual objects, virtual images. U values are always positive, right? Because we only place the object here. Here we are not discussing about virtual objects. We are only thinking about real objects. So all the U values are positive values. Then we got 4 real images and 2 virtual images. Then what you do is you take reciprocal of U, then reciprocal, those are positive. Reciprocal of V, those are negative. Right? So you have values for these. Then using those values, you can draw the graph. So the y-axis is 1 over V. Then you have x-axis 1 over U. So the graph should be, it needs to have a gradient of +1. So the graph will be something like that, right? Something like this. So these are the real values. So in order to draw this graph, you mark these coordinates like this. So 4, these are real images. Negative, right? Negative values are for real images and positive values are for virtual images. We just took 2 coordinates for that. So you can mark these coordinates and just draw the graph. So if you have correctly drawn the graph, you know that this angle should be 45 degrees. This angle should be 45 degrees, right? Because gradient is 1, right? So tan 45. So it should be 45 degrees. Then from the intercept, the intercept is here. So you know intercept is equal to 1 over f. Then f is what? 1 over c. So that is how you find the focal length there. So using that, you can find the focal length, right? So that is the idea of this experiment. So I have explained this in depth. You have to think this stuff. If something is not clear, you have to think about that in deep, right? So then only you can answer those questions given in the exam, right? Okay. You can take this down, right? Then for the discussion, I'll say some points, then just take it down. Write down. When the eye is placed, as in above, turn or rotate, the lens slash stand, if the image is not seen through, the lens is not seen through the lens. Okay, that point I'll explain. I didn't mention that point earlier. Let's say you have this lens, it's kind of like tilted, right? Tilted, something like that. So when you see through the lens, you will not see the image form because the image is from somewhere else. You will not see that along this principal axis, right? So till you see that, the reason could be the tilting of the lens, or the stand could be rotated to a different plane. So you have to adjust those, right? Till you see the image like this. So this is valid for the first part and the second part, right? Both cases. This is a common fact. So you have to adjust this stand. You can just move this, right? This stand and the lens till you see the image symmetrically through the lens. Then you know that this is going to be the principal axis. So the images are formed based on the principal axis, right? So that is the first point. Then write down a second point. When observing real images, the eye is placed at a considerable distance. Eye is placed at a considerable distance full stop. But when observing virtual images, eye is placed closer to the lens. Eye is placed closer to the lens to avoid the real image of pin 2. the real image of pin 2. There's another important fact that I have not mentioned. Just first take it down. For real images, underline for real images, right? Underline for real images. U and V values can be interchanged to increase the number of coordinates to draw the graph. So this is only valid for real images, right? For virtual images, you cannot use this. So you know the reversibility of light. So let's say you place, for an example, right? Let's say you place this object at this distance, 25 centimeters. And let's say, for an example, the image is made at 30 centimeters, right? So this is object distance and this is image distance. So because of reversibility, if you place the object at 30 centimeters, obviously the image is going to form at 25 centimeters. So if you place the object at this distance, then there's going to be an image formed at 25 centimeters. So you can change these V and U values only for real images, right? Change these values, then you can have more coordinates, right? So if one coordinate is 25, 30, then you can just, without doing an experiment, without going for experimental procedure, you can just take another set like this, 25, 30, right? So earlier we got about 4 coordinates of real images. Then you can double that number, like 8 coordinates. The more coordinates you have, the better, right? So you can draw the graph more accurately, right? Right. Then there's a one more fact you have to understand. Please take notes as I'm explaining, right? Not only the notes I'm giving, you have to, right? So this fact is also for real images only. For real images, it's also only for real images, right? So since I'm using real images only, this V value, if you apply sign convention, now you can apply sign convention because this V is not going to be positive or negative. Because I'm only using real images, this is going to be negative only, right? Then real object, so plus U. Then this is a convex lens, so it is minus. So I just applied sign convention because I'm using real images only for this condition. So you have this equation. This is for real images, right? So you have this equation, right? So if you arrange this, so U is related to the independent variable, that is X. So it is going to be minus 1 over F. So this is a dependent variable and you have the independent variable 1 over U as the X. So you get a negative gradient, right? So it is a negative 1. Gradient is actually negative 1. So value is, gradient is like this. And the intercept is positive. Okay. So as you are doing the experiment, if you only use the real images, you can actually draw this graph and get the intercept, and you can figure out a value for focal length. So that is 1 over c. Okay. There's another way you can form this like this. Let's say you got this one. This also is for only real images. So you can take VU denominator, then above it, it is V plus U is equal to 1 over F. Is equal to 1 over F. So just cross multiply UV equals F U plus V. So here UV is equal to F U plus V. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this UV as the dependent variable Y and U plus V as the independent variable. So it is going to be, this is Y, this is X, and this is going to be the gradient. Okay. So it is a Y equals mx graph. So the gradient of this graph is equal to what? Focal length. So already you have coordinates, right? You have coordinates for U and V, 6 coordinates. You can draw these graphs as well. So in the exam, in the questions, you might get graphs related to these. So you should know, right? So in this case, it is gradient is equal to focal length, right? Like that. So that is how you find the focal length of a convex lens. So all these are done for a convex lens. So this is you can find the focal length very accurately because we used a graphical method to find the focal length.